when senior folks are able to put their egos aside and recognize that they have a lot to learn. Some things stay the same and then some things have changed. I think the what of what humans need in terms of the need to experience real moments of connection, in terms of experiencing and sharing emotions, whether joyful or sad, that really hasn't gone away, right? The way in which they share and express these emotions has changed. A lot more is online, a lot more is peer-to-peer. A lot of the validation that previously they may have sought from traditional authority figures are now coming from online groups that they have, whether it's on WhatsApp or social media or so on and so forth. And so in some ways, there are arguments made that it's making people more atomized, making societies more atomized and driving them apart. In many ways, it's actually bringing people together. You have the ability to find other people with like-minded interests, people with deep interests in, for example, roasting coffee beans, like maybe your hobby, but you find somebody on the other end of the world who's doing that and are able to bond and find a moment of true connection. And so technology does allow us to enable us to create some of these moments of real connection, but there's a little bit of truth in both of it. It also kind of creates a little bit of distance as well. I don't think there has ever been a moment where we've seen so much change, but I think that other adage also holds true, which is today is the slowest day you're going to ever have for the rest of your life, right? And so the pace of change is just going to continue to get faster and faster. I think first of all, it's impossible for any CEO to be completely on top of every single development that's happened, in the world. And therefore, it's really critical for them to surround themselves with fantastic people who are experts in terms of their functional field and really are able to process the information, make sense of it all, and help the CEO kind of make the right decisions that builds the company. The second one is really all about having the humility to understand that you're not necessarily the center of the universe, and then that entails, I think, a fundamental rethink of how a CEO kind of views himself. His job really becomes, or her job really becomes, all about enabling other people to fulfill their potential, and that really unlocks, I think, that latent potential that exists in all of us. And then I think the third one is really all about curiosity and learning. And I think this is a value which is really, really important. Knowing that you don't know it all, but always wanting to learn more about kind of what's going on, always seeking to understand, and knowing that you can learn from anybody. I had a fantastic conversation with a group of summer interns who came in last week, and they asked some wonderful questions, but they also had some wonderful thoughts in terms of evolution of the category, in terms of how consumers behave. And I learned a lot through that interaction, probably more than they learned through me. And so as long as we kind of have this going for us, I think we'll be able to kind of survive whatever life throws at us. When senior folks are able to put their egos aside and recognize that they have a lot to learn, and trust me, anybody who has a teenage kid will tell you that they have a lot to learn from kids. The outlook on the world is very, very different. Their ability to synthesize information is really, really different. And so as long as we're able to have that openness and that curiosity, I think reverse mentoring can be a fantastic concept. The expectations are pretty consistent. It is to continue to drive value for the organization or the enterprise and to bring the outside in. And both are super critical. We're living in an age where we have a lot of technology, a lot of data, a lot of analytics, and we're able to measure, if not in real time, at least to a really good extent, what kind of ROI we're getting on each of our marketing streams. And so the ability to be able to make sense of all the information that's floating around and say, this is the way in which we are going to be actually able to deliver on our goals in the most most efficient manner, and be able to prove that to the organization becomes very, very critical. And the second piece is really bringing the outside in, which is, for me, putting the consumer at the heart of every decision that we make, mapping the consumer journey, figuring out where the pain points are, and innovating to solve those pain points, versus really thinking about internal organization, systems and processes. I think those are the two big shifts. And so for me, CMOs are called many things these days. The one that I continue to love is all about growth, and so the chief growth officer, because ultimately driving growth through creating the demand requires that external lens, and is what the organization and every organization needs. And so that's what I think every CEO really expects. At the end of the day, we're all running businesses, right? And for us, marketing continues to become an incredibly important way in which we can deliver better value for consumers. There's no function which I think is more important or less important than any other function. But I think the core of it is to make sure that as long as the voice of the consumer is brought into the boardroom, that typically tends to happen through the marketing function, and that coalesces the entire organization around that. And to that extent, it's a very, very critical function to define the future for any organization. Well, I guess that depends upon the specific vision of the brand. I don't think every brand can or aspires to necessarily become a platform. But I guess the core values of a brand, as long as they stand for quality, trust, and reliability in consumers' heads and minds, as long as they have the equity that allows them to stretch, to straddle multiple different fields, that would probably give brands an ability to maybe become a little bit more platform-like. And I guess the jury's still out in terms of, can brands actually do it? Are there companies which would rather create an ecosystem of connected brands in order to best fulfill specific consumer needs? And there are multiple models which kind of work. Mars is a great model where we have multiple, nutrition brands that we have, Pedigree and Whiskas and Royal Canin. But we also have fantastic services brands such as our animal hospitals and our diagnostic centers as well. They're different brands, but they are all kind of connected as part of an ecosystem play. And so I think there are different mental models that companies use. Ultimately, it's around mapping the consumer journey and solving for their individual pain points. Whether you do it through a brand or through a constellation of brands, or an ecosystem, really depends upon the specific vision, I guess.